Today is May the 4th, 2021. My name is Leslie Torres. I am interviewing Andrea Juarez for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Juarez, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to the Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So, I will ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I consent.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I consent.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I consent.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I consent.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We used information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members, so that will not be a part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview and your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I consent.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I consent.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you will say in the interview questions I will now ask. Okay, so Andrea, thank you for your time. Like I said earlier, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and the Voces Project. Particularly for us at UTRGV Special Collections, we are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Because you are an essential worker and a co-founder of the local organization RGV Mutual Aid, and because you are a daughter and a friend who is knowledgeable of the ways COVID-19 has affected others in her inner circle, I know you have many meaningful stories and experiences to share on how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So, before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us, who is Andrea Juarez?
So I'm 24. I'm from the Valley. I graduated from UTRGV in 2019 with my Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, and I'm now pursuing my Master's in Psychology also at UTRGV. I live in McAllen, and I always have. And yeah, I've been involved with the RGV Mutual Aid since the beginning, so I've been trying to do my best to do work with them as best as I can.
So the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19 and how did you learn about it, whether through radio, TV, or social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter a lot, and I would see I also get like notifications on my phone from CNN and other like I guess news outlets like that. Um, and of course it was just that first the whole like outbreak in China, and it just seemed so far. Um, and I think it didn't feel, which sounds like kind of like self-centered, but like it didn't hit me that it was real until we got our first case in Texas, which I don't know what it was, like Austin or I don't know, but too close, I guess. So yeah, a lot of social media has helped me like keep up with that. But I remember when it first, was spotted in like China.
Okay, and you just said a little bit about it right now, but what was your first reaction to the information about COVID-19?
Um, I didn't maybe understand the severity of what a pandemic was. Although it's funny, like a few months before I had watched a documentary on pandemics and how fast they spread. It was super weird. Then like months later there was an outbreak, but I thought, well, it's 2020, like they'll contain it. So I really didn't take it like I didn't understand the severity of it at all until it hit Texas, I think.
Okay, so, and you just mentioned this as well. So, at what point did you realize the pandemic was a serious life-altering event?
Yeah, I think yeah, when I first heard it in Texas, I was like, it's like bound to get here. Like everyone travels and no one's gonna stop that. And they didn't. So I think it was really when it hit close to home that I was like starting to get concerned. That was like March, I think. I don't remember exactly.
Okay, and over the last few months, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
I would say like CNN and Twitter. I mean, not that Twitter's super reliable, but they have like the news section in that. So that's a lot of that and like a lot of word of mouth or all over here, like my parents watching like Noticias 48 or something. So a lot of that.
Okay, and can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and any of its variants? And likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
I understand like not only the deadly effects, but even people that survive it will continue to live with like the long-term effects of it, which is I think pretty terrifying. I understand how easily it has spread, and we've seen that, and it's still not even over, and it's been over a year, which is also scary. And I feel like I've understood the severity of it from seeing the numbers of cases, not only like worldwide, but nationally and then locally, like Hidalgo County and Cameron County had really high cases, like a concerning amount. I remember the whole like bodies and trucks and all that traumatic stuff. And like I would say when it comes to, I get a little confused, I guess, when they started announcing like different variants and how the vaccines are very new and I feel like they don't know a lot about them. So I would say I was just confused about how effective it is against new variants and how does that even happen. It just seems like it's like a terrifying like to think about how we're kind of close to the end, but then they announce a new variant and it's like I don't understand how that's gonna end up long term, I guess.
Yeah, like it feels almost never ending at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you tell me what you know about the various vaccines available to the public and how do you feel about these vaccines?
Um yeah, so I feel like it's great that they, put funding in them and came out with them so quick. And I know that people have been kind of not trusting of them, which I think it's valid to not trust the government due to like history. But I did get my vaccine as soon as I could, just because I feel like the reality of getting COVID is scarier than maybe the aftermath of the vaccines. Of course, we would like to know more, but I feel like in this case, I went ahead and took the leap and just took the vaccine. I see nothing concerning about it so far. And again, I understand why people are hesitant to get it, but I think the amount of deaths and things like that is just too much to ignore.
On that note, do you have a vaccination story you would like to share with me now or perhaps later in this interview?
No, I mean, it was pretty quick for me. It was pretty convenient. I think, yeah, which I think is kind of privileged to say. And then you say things like in India, how it's like really bad right now. And I feel like as Americans, like we do have the privilege of getting it very accessibly. Like it was very fast for me. It was online really quickly. Not everyone has internet access. So yeah, I'm definitely someone that had it very easy to get.
Okay, and do your family members hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some who take it more seriously or more lightly?
I would say for my family, I'm the one that's taken it the most seriously. I try to share as many like news articles to make it as real for them as I can. And so I know some of them still don't want to get the vaccine because they don't trust it, which again, as people of color, I think that's valid. I still wish they would get it. I still try to convince them, but there's a lot of that. Misinformation travels a lot, especially with older people. I feel like on Facebook and things like that. So I feel like that's definitely like the spread of misinformation on Facebook and the internet in general has really like changed maybe how quickly we're vaccinating people and all that stuff, or who wears masks. And it's sad to say like that it has affected the numbers, I assume, because it's a lot of older people that feel a certain way over, you know, misinformation that they saw online and stuff. Sorry about that. Hey, it's okay. Come here. But yeah, I would say since I'm taking it seriously, I try to also like spread as much information as I see that I know is credible.
Okay, and so for these next set of questions, I would like to ask or like to talk about how you've seen COVID-19 affect family members, friends, and yourself. So first, can you share with me in general how many members are in your family and who are they to you?
So I mean, my immediate family is just me and my parents. I'm an only child. And my dad works out of town, but luckily he also was able to get the vaccine as soon as he could, and we've been safe about it. I know my grandma, she's 89, so we've been like real careful with her. She refuses to get the vaccine, but we try to like just keep her as safe as possible. And I've been pretty lucky to not have any family members, at least on my mom's side, that are here with me. None of them have gotten COVID, luckily. On my dad's side, they all live in Mexico, and unfortunately, they have all, like every single one of them, have gotten COVID. I feel like that's due to so many reasons. I don't know how accessible vaccines are over there. And, you know, they got to work, you know, so that's unfortunate. But luckily, I have not. Also, I haven't experienced like a COVID death or anything yet. So I feel also very lucky about that. Oh my goodness, it's okay. Sorry. I'm gonna mute you for one. Okay, they should be fine. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so what was your immediate family's reaction to COVID?
I think they were all pretty concerned at first. I think there were like deaths and whatnot. Jesus Christ. I don't. Okay, yeah. So, I would say they were all pretty concerned at first, like as well as everyone. I think it's not until like time passed and people got tired of being indoors that they also like stopped taking it as seriously. Unfortunately. Hey, it's okay. Okay.
At what point would you say that was? Like after how many months of quarantine, for example?
I don't know. I want to say like we were doing pretty well quarantine wise until I feel what like 6 months, 7 months. I really don't know. I feel like time was kind of a blur during that time for me. But like, so I think the first couple months were good, and then my mom would be like, "Oh, like I need to leave the house," And I feel like I've been pretty like paranoid about it, so I really tried not to, like, I really tried to talk her into, like, this is like bigger than us, this is bigger than our urges to want to go out. Like, there's literally people dying, and the whole, I guess maybe they would be reminded of it when they watch the news and watch that, like, we were running out of space for bodies and like in the freezers and things like that. And so that was pretty traumatic, I think, to see. And so I feel like maybe that also like reminded us or like grounded us of like what the situation actually is. But I would say after a few couple months, like, people were getting antsy about it, and that did not exclude my family for sure.
Right. Yeah, I can get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned after about 6 or 7 months or however many that you guys stayed at home. So you did quarantine. Did you begin quarantining last March or April of 2020?
Yeah, I think mid-March I was like home, and then the job that I had at the moment quickly went online. So I was pretty lucky about that. I did not have to be expose myself that when I wasn't comfortable. I think once immediately I realized, I stayed home, and so did my work.
Okay. And what did your family do? Your family and you do to pass the time during quarantine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my dad was working, and my mom's been just taking care of my grandma. I personally, for working from home, I was kind of losing my mind a little. So I tried to take on as many hobbies as I could. I've done a lot of like crafty things. So now I like have this pile of like crafts that I did throughout the pandemic. And they're not good, but like they were my sanity, I guess. So it was a lot of that and being online. But then like being online also gets overwhelming when the news is constantly bombarding you with not only pandemic related things, but there was also, social movements that were, going up during the summer, Black Lives Matter movements and things like that. So the news did get overwhelming. My phone did get overwhelming. So I also tried not to be too much on that. So yeah, I would like make stuff with yarn and whatnot.
Okay. And so you just mentioned you would work on crafts and hobbies. Okay. Okay, so then I can scratch the next question. Did your family change the way you socialized when you had to go into public, and why or why not?
Yeah, I think like this pandemic made me realize how, I guess, how many things we touch and how much contact we have with others without even, directly realizing it, from touching doorknobs to standing really close to each other. So, luckily nobody in my family was like an anti-masker or anything. So, we wore our masks, washed our hands, disinfected things before we came inside. So I would say like it really highlighted how much like stuff we were touching. I was kind of like, I'm kind of don't feel like I can go back to just touching things that other people were touching. I don't know, but so I feel like a lot changed, definitely. But yeah, we were pretty safe about it, and we followed all like the CDC guidelines and whatnot, because yeah, it was scary. And then also, we have my like a lot of older family members, so I know that personally I'm young, I wouldn't necessarily maybe die from it, although you never know. I definitely did not want to be the reason that it spread within my family. So, you know saying no to friends, hanging out and things like that was just like little things that I had to do.
Okay. And in our pre-interview and earlier in this interview, you mentioned that the majority of your family on your dad's side, if not all of them in Mexico, became infected with the coronavirus. And luckily they've survived, but can you explain how your immediate family felt or reacted to this news?
So yeah, like my grandma from Mexico was the first one to get it, because I believe she's going to church or something. But it was concerning. She's older, and I think that's when it hit closest, when she got it. And hopefully it made like my other family members realize like, oh, this is real, and this is something that can affect us. I feel like sometimes when you see it on TV, it just seems so unreal that it could maybe affect you. um so yeah, we're pretty concerned because she's an older like woman, and luckily she was okay. And my dad sent over what like little oxygen tanks and like what he could, or like little things to help her recover from it, and she did. And what it does, to the rest of her body long term, I still don't understand that. But It was pretty unfortunate, and that's when I think it hit closest. And I think the fact that like a lot of my family members from over there got it more than the ones over here, um, kind of highlighted like how like the disparities, I guess, in the government's help and access to. I don't know if they didn't have masks. Like I really don't know what like the situation for them is living there, but I know there must be a difference between here and there because a lot of them were infected with corona.
Did your immediate family ever consider visiting your family in Mexico if your extended family situation grew worse? For example, did your parents consider visiting a family member if the possibility of them passing away became a more pressing issue?
Yeah, I know like my dad really wanted to go see his mom, obviously, but I really had to, I guess, or I mean, we both talked about it and we realized it's just sometimes not worth it. Like if you are gonna get it and then bring it to us, and I know that's really hard, and to have your family, a border away from you, I know that must be difficult, but the situation just like it just made no sense to go and visit. And like I did have a death in the family. It was not COVID related. My great grandmother died during the pandemic, and I know my dad was also really upset about not being able to go to her funeral. And that was really upsetting too. But like at the time, we were just like, we can't do it. It's not worth it. And I know it's something that he'll be sad about for a while, but I think long term, it's better that we don't, keep spreading it around. Um, so yeah.
How did the pandemic impact family traditions, customs, and holiday celebrations? For example, did you celebrate birthdays and Christmas differently, or did you have a traditional Thanksgiving, or did you celebrate things in a different way during this pandemic?
Yeah, I would say like I only see my family in holidays and we all get together, and that did not happen. Just kind of like I guess. Oh my goodness! Stop it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So like luckily my family was pretty conscious about COVID, so there was no family parties like other years and stuff, and it was kind of like it brought me down, but especially because I hadn't seen them in such a long time. But I mean, it was necessary. I celebrated my birthday just here at home. I would have like my friends like bring me like a present or whatever, like just driving by. So that was I guess nice. But I was just I guess having to like I turned 24, and yeah, it was just like I really thought like how can I make this special without endangering someone. And so it was just I kept it like low key, and my family also has not had like any parties and stuff. I know that they really want to now, and I'm still kind of like hesitant to do that, but I'm glad that like we really like I think it's like pretty selfless to not do that, like to put like the community before. So I guess I'm proud of them that they didn't have any parties. So it was just like yeah, reinventing what that means, or just keeping it like in your immediate circle.
Okay. And you alluded to this a little bit with your great grandmother who passed away, but if you attended any weddings, graduations, or funerals, can you please share with me how the pandemic made these events different from pre-pandemic times, or if you didn't attend?
No, yeah, I haven't attended anything.
Okay. And this next set of questions focuses on your stories and experiences as an essential worker in the time of COVID-19. So in our pre-interview, you mentioned that you started a new job at a mental health clinic in January 2021. Were you nervous to begin a job in the midst of a pandemic, and why or why not?
Yeah, I feel like I grew pretty accustomed to being at home, working from home, and then I quit that, but I was still just here. So I grew very accustomed to that. So I guess the thought of exposing myself to new people was definitely kind of scary for me. But like after talking with the my coworker and like my boss, so he's still also very COVID conscious. So he's a psychiatrist, so he's still been doing like his appointments online. So very few patients come in person, and I really have like one other coworker, and a lot of my work is on the computer or on the phone. So it was comforting, and I got very lucky again to find a job that did not like put my safety or in danger or make me uncomfortable. So yeah, after like asking all those questions, I realized that I was ready to get out of the house for sure, because wow, but like in a safe way. And I was also grateful to find a job during this time. I know it's been quite the opposite experience for a lot of people.
Okay. And can you explain what your job title is and what you do?
Mm-hmm. So I'm an office clerk. I do a lot of contacting patients and emailing them and filing their information. Being like the intermediate between the doctor and the patient a lot. So, sending in their refills for their medication and things like that. And, I'm in the psychology field, so I feel like I've just been trying to learn from that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is it fully in person, or can you also work remotely with this job?
No, yeah, it's fully in person. But yeah, again, luckily I don't have contact with a lot of people.
And what has this transition to in-person working been like for you? Has it been nerve-wracking, or does it possibly feel like we are shifting back into relaxed pre-pandemic times?
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking at first. Not only like going out, but also just interacting with people. I was like, I think I forgot how to do that for like a quick second. So I was just like a little nervous about that. But like I said, I don't have a lot of contact with people still. So it does not feel like we're going back to normal from the things that I experience. No, I also don't go out still. So yeah, in my little world, I'm still very much like in the middle of it, and I know other people aren't, or because of their job they have to see a lot of people, and maybe it feels more transitional for them. But for me, I'm still very much like with minimal contact.
Okay. And you also mentioned in our pre-interview that you're beginning your master's program in psychology here at UTRGV in the upcoming fall semester. Do you think the program will be primarily online or in person? And if you feel that it will be or if you think that it will be in person, are you nervous to head back to campus? Or do you think things will be safe and back to normal by the fall?
Mm-hmm. So I missed the orientation, so I really don't know how classes are gonna work. I know a lot of people that are doing like, I guess they rotate back and forth between it. Personally, I don't know what my like semester is gonna look like, but I am a little like nervous because that's definitely gonna be people like that are not in my close circle that I'm gonna have to have interactions with, because it's school and I don't really think I can fight against that. So I'm a little nervous about that. I would prefer it to be online, but then I consider about how I have had online classes before and they were not, good for my learning. So it's definitely like I'm definitely conflicted, and I guess I'm just gonna go with the flow, and if it is in person a lot, keep doing what I'm doing and hope for the best. And at least I'm vaccinated. I think that brings me a little comfort as well.
Okay, and now I would like to ask you about your participation in and how you helped develop RGV Mutual Aid in the summer of 2020, which was also during the peak of the pandemic in the Rio Grande Valley. So to begin with, can you explain to me why you think mutual aid assistance within communities is important? And also, do you feel that certain regions or demographics of people in the United States require mutual aid assistance more than others? Why or why not?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like when we started, it was in the middle of a pandemic, but it was in direct response to Hurricane Hanna. And it was really, my friend Victoria, who I was already in a group chat with, who brought up the idea. And I think everyone jumped on board because it was like also like the day after Good Morning America was like talking about the hurricane and how it passed through this region, but it's okay because nobody really lives here. And that like angered a lot of people, including myself. I think Greg Abbott tweeting about how Texans affected by the hurricane were still out getting Whataburger, so we're fine. And then in contrast, seeing all the people's flooded homes and destroyed roofs, spoiled food. So a lot of that was like, I think the reason that a lot of us were like on board to quickly do what we could. Those of us that were not affected, those of us that had power. Um, so yeah, I would say in a region like this one, where this is not the first time where we feel definitely like overlooked and neglected by the government. That's like one of the many reasons why we felt like we wanted to start something like that. And I'm really grateful to have been in a group chat with like such cool people that they knew what they were doing. Like I literally have never done anything like this before. I was just like really willing to put my time into it because wasn't working at the time. So yeah, I would say it was a combination of a lot of things. I think being in the middle of a pandemic, watching people's families, pass away and go through such hard times, on top at a hurricane that flooded a lot of low income peoples because it affected colonias more than anything. That was really upsetting to watch. So it was just really us not wanting to watch it unfold and wanting to have some part and some help in it. So yeah.
Okay, and RGB Mutual Aid, are you a nonprofit yet, or just an organization of people who work together, or?
Yeah, we're just like a collective of where most of us are young people of color in the valley. So we're just a collective, we're not tied to anybody or anything. We're really just a group of people donating our like time and resources to distribute the funds that we collected at that time.
Okay, and how did you and the other RGB Mutual Aid members popularize the organization last summer? When did you start to notice that community? Let me start that over. When did you start to notice community outreach and volunteer intake really start picking up?
Yeah, so we weren't planning on making it collectives necessarily or naming it anything. We really just, I think Victoria started found like a money raising platform online and tweeted the link, and it quickly got traction on Twitter. And then the rest of us shared the link, and it quickly spread, and people were donating. Like I remember within the first hour we had $1,000 or something, which I was like amazed. I really didn't think that it would be so much. And then I don't know at what point we reached 50,000, and yeah, it was like a lot of that. And once we saw that people were interested in helping as well, we decided to just make a Twitter for our collective, just to have everything, centralized in one place rather than spread within all of our accounts, because there was quite a few of us. And yeah, and then it quickly got attention. I think it was really heartwarming that people cared. And I think it was like a perfect example of how, we do care about each other here in the Valley. Like we really reached so many people like that I'll never even know or meet, but I know that like we're there, like we are there, and we're not the only ones that are here. Like we care about each other, and I think a lot of people proved that. So it was really, yeah, it was really heartwarming as like the link spread.
Okay, and can you estimate the highest number of volunteers that RGV Mutual Aid had at the time? And how were the responsibilities between volunteers organized and designated?
Yeah, keeping track of volunteers has been kind of hard, especially because we work in a system where nobody's like on top, like we're all kind of equal. So then having a lot of like, I know on our Slack chat we have about 60 people, but to be fair, not all of them are active. So it's like keeping that in mind. And yeah, like one of us got like somebody made a chart to like visualize roles and like Venn diagrams and all this. It was really cool. So it was like someone to post on social media, someone to make graphics, someone to distribute the funds. So I was like one of the distributors, and like there was like 3 of us distributing, just not everybody also felt comfortable accepting large amounts of money, but there was that. And then someone in charge of Facebook, someone in charge of Twitter, someone in charge of Instagram, someone in charge of recruiting the volunteers, someone in charge of reaching out to the people requesting the aid and just making sure that all the information was correct and that it got to the right person. So yeah, it was like quite a bit of stuff, and the fact that we organized it all without ever meeting each other was also pretty cool.
Okay, and all of these roles, people just kind of stepped up and participated in the role they wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like bring what you can to the table. I didn't want anyone to go feel uncomfortable or feel, because it's 100% volunteer, so just do what you can. And that's why we try to have as many people, because if this person couldn't, maybe this person could. And it was cool, like people that were good at art and graphics were the ones doing our graphics for social media. People that were good at math and like Excel and stuff were the ones helping us log our distribution and our efforts. So just like really bring what you can.
Okay. And how did you and the other members raise funds for Hurricane Hanna victims, and what was the extent of total funds raised, which I know you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so it was just a lot of spreading the link around. I forgot what website we were using. We just found like a random website and had people donate to it. And we've reached 50,000. And that's around the time that we decided that was a lot of money and that we were gonna pause and distribute that before we kept going. Because I'm sure we could have kept going. Like people were really, really generous. But yeah, that's around the time where we're like, okay, this is the limit. Considering how many of us there are, like this is our limit. But it was quite a bit of money. Yeah.
And what determined the amount of fund distributions? Did each, like for example, did each aid recipient receive like a base amount of assistance funds, like at least this amount, or like how did you to figure that out?
Yeah, so I think that was what took us a while, just like deciding, because so we had like a request form just to keep track of people and the amounts of it. So how much do you need and by when do you need it, and is it for, you know, repairing your home or replacing your groceries, things like that. And I guess just based on what they needed from, we had like a base amount. It was from $100 to $200. That's like the math we could come up with to make it as sustainable, like to give to as many people as possible without also giving everyone like very little, because people had like serious problems. People need hundreds of dollars to repair their roofs and all this, like repair their cars that were flooded and things like that. So I would say that was kind of like what we struggled with, but I think we gave from 100 to 200 up to 300, I think was the max that we would give a person, just to make it as like sustainable as we could. And I hope we were making the right decisions. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what was it like distributing aid to people in need during a pandemic? Was it challenging, or did you and other members find creative ways to do so in a COVID safe manner?
Yeah, I think that once we got our system down, we had someone reach out to them, confirm their information, and then like two of us would start sending to their cash apps, or some people don't have cash apps, so we would find someone to get the cash to them. Which I think that was like the most difficult one because of COVID. You know, we tried to keep the contact down. We didn't want any volunteers risking themselves, but we did do a little of that. So yeah, once we got our system down, it was pretty smooth flowing. Like we knew what we had to do as often as we could. And it was a summer, so maybe a lot of us weren't in school. So it was working, I think, at its peak at that time because we had more time available. And it felt really good. Like I mentioned, we're just a collective of people. So we're not tied to any government or any nonprofit that tells us like you can only give out this much to these people. We really just like there would be people like explaining like their situation to us in depth, and it's like you know, we're not a government entity. Like you do not have to share your trauma with us for us to think that you're valid to receive aid. Like I think it's pretty liberating to be on your own and have people trust you with your money, with their money, to distribute to like everyone. Like we really didn't have any like rigid or like strict ways to like apply or anything. We try to make it as accessible as possible. So I think it was nice to just be able to give people money, and you could see how they were grateful, like that they felt, I guess, trusted, which is messed up. Like I feel like I guess the government and the systems that we have had in place because of capitalism makes everyone kind of afraid or like feel like undeserving of aid. But like literally we were all going through it. So yeah, I think once we got our system down and we're able to give to as many people as we could, it was like I felt rewarding to me.
Okay. And so you mentioned right now that it was, since it was during the summertime, a lot of the volunteers and the founding members had extra time to help out with this. So what would you say was the demographic of your volunteers and members?
Yeah, so just from what I can see on like Slack and things, a lot of us, almost all of us are people of color. All of us are between the ages of maybe like 18 to 30, I think max. A lot of us are LGBT and women. Like just from, because we would put out like a volunteer form, and those are the people that wanted to help. Like we accepted all the volunteers, and we ended up being a lot of queer women of color, or like just members of the LGBT community, which I think just shows like we do look out for each other. Marginalized communities know, or people in marginalized communities know what it's like, so we help each other out.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I can see that. So do you think the majority, if not all the volunteers and members of RGV Mutual Aid, being people of color, like for the most part, right? Do you think that makes RGV Mutual Aid unique in a way, or perhaps more, they know what's best for the local community here since we're all from here, or?
Yeah, like I feel like maybe when there's like political organizations or like nonprofits, or even just like when people canvass for like politicians and things like that, like they bring people from out of town to come try to convince us to vote for someone, for example. And like those people don't know how to speak our language. They're not people of color. They're not members of this community. So I think it's also just, I think it made it more obvious how important it is to have people from here work here and do the work here, because like we're the only ones that speak our language, and we're the only ones that really know what our needs are. So yeah, like we would try to take notes from other mutual aids, because we are new, and we're not like, we don't know exactly what to do. But keeping in mind that we are not like Dallas, we are not like Houston. We are like, I feel like a very unique region with our unique needs and our unique systems. And so, yeah, I would say that we're hesitant to do specifically like everything that everyone else does, because we have to change it a little. We're definitely a unique region.
Okay. And I didn't have this written down, but in our pre-interview, you mentioned you've been involved in civil rights organizations, and now that you've participated in RGB Mutual Aid, and like you've seen the effects of COVID-19 and Hurricane Hanna, and even the freeze from February 2021 affect this area and community, would you say that the Latino or Latinx community here maybe is affected differently from other regions in the US or even just Texas?
Yeah, like I figured that people of color would get the short end of the stick somehow, and then we did. And I think the numbers prove it, even if some people don't want to believe that, like, racism is still taking part in the way that we deal with like healthcare crisis and things like that. The numbers are there, whether it be because the majority of Black and brown people are essential workers, or like working like low wage jobs that didn't get the luxury of working from home. Yeah, and then also just not only the numbers, but seeing it here in real life. People have to keep working. Like the government didn't provide a stimulus check for everyone. Undocumented people didn't receive a stimulus check at all. And like a lot of them down here, at least like they're Latino or Mexican specifically or whatever. So yeah, it's not only seeing the numbers, but also like just living in this region has highlighted how disproportionate this pandemic didn't affect everyone equally, because people would be like, this virus doesn't care what race you are, or what color you are, or what gender you are. And for sure, like anyone can get it, but who's more, predisposed to getting it? People that are low income, and people of color, Black and brown people. And then I guess something that recently hit me is like I've seen I guess the Mexican American experience living here as an American, but then seeing how my family are in actual Mexico how like we're both, you know, the same race and all that, but they're living a whole other thing as well. So how in America, like, you know, definitely Latinos are getting the short end of the stick. But then I also think about how even then we're privileged in comparison to maybe like how other governments are also not handling it very well, unfortunately. So it's a lot. There's a lot of layers to this, and then it'll be just very devastating how if this ever ends, like the numbers will show like how marginalized people were like the most affected after all.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you for that. So let me just go back to RGV Mutual Aid. So as you have said, RGB Mutual Aid started out as a remote organization and still exists in that form today. Do you believe the remoteness of this organization has helped with popularity, organization, and or volunteer recruitment? And why or why not?
Yeah, so, you know, organizing has never been done like 100% online until now. So I really didn't know how that would go, but I think overall it has proven more of a benefit than anything else. I think about how spread out the RGV is, like people look at us like as a whole region, but literally it's from Brownsville to McAllen to Peñitas, and like we're all over the place. We're like hours away like from each other. So I think the fact that like we were able to meet in online spaces, like I think proved to be the more accessible part. And I think it's something that like disabled people have been pushing for forever, and we thought we couldn't do it, but then the pandemic came and it's like, oh, we can be accessible to everyone. We just, I guess, didn't want to. So I think it's been cool that like maybe not everyone that can drive all the way to me or me all the way to them, or not everyone has transportation. The only thing would be not everyone also has internet access, so there's always something. But I would say doing it online I thought would be kind of difficult, but I think it gives us like more pros and cons. We've like reached people that I would have never met in real life, and they took part, and they're like a volunteer, and maybe they would have never been if it were like in-person recruitment or anything like that. So yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Okay. And after the chaos of Hurricane Hanna died down, how did RGB Mutual Aid retain relevance? Do you and the other members in charge still distribute funds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so once school started, we literally, yeah, we did die down because a lot of us like are young and then in school and they work. So yeah, I definitely didn't want to overwhelm anyone because I wasn't in school, so I found that I had more time than others, and I didn't want to overwhelm anyone. Um, but also I didn't want to like lose traction. So I think we tried to keep up with our social media as much as we could. I try to tweet little things when I can. And we have kept distributing. It was a lot of money, so that took a while to distribute for sure. And I wish we could have worked faster. I know people don't have the time to be waiting for us, so I felt guilty about that, but we really were doing what we could, especially when the number of active members died down. We were doing what we could, and then we closed down the, like, we stopped accepting donations, but someone did find like our Venmo, like because the only thing that we have for RG Mutual Aid was our Venmo. So someone found that, spread it, so we did went like get more money through there without advertising it. So then we continued to distribute that money, so the money didn't stop. And then Equal Voice Network donated like 5K to us, so then it was more money to distribute, so it never ended. And as of now, we're pretty close to just finally distributing all the money. As of 2021, I think we've distributed 12,000. That's literally just from our Venmo and people donating to us on the side. But we haven't been advertising it because we're very small amount of active members right now, and I don't want to overwhelm us either. But it's also nice that like even without us actively like trying to, you know, accept donations, people are still like interested in giving us money and trusting us with it, and I thought it's also like really nice, and that's why I don't want it to die down. Like I hope maybe I can accept more volunteers later, people that have the time, because yeah, I feel like there's still work to be done. I don't only want us to be active during a crisis, because there's always something going on and people are always going to need aid, especially down here. So yeah.
Okay, and you just mentioned you donated around 12,000 in 2021. So was that still going to people who are affected by Hurricane Hanna, or maybe to help other mutual aid organizations, or what was that used for this year?
Yeah, so then we did open up a second request form when the freeze hit, because we figured a lot of people, lost all their food, or needed blankets and things like that. I tried to we started a thread on Twitter. So even if we couldn't directly help, we started a thread on Twitter of resources of people giving free food, people giving free sweaters and things like that. It was really cold and some people didn't even have a heater, which is unreal. I still can't believe that that's something that happened. So yeah, we tried to spread the resources, because make sure they reached who they needed to reach. And then once I gathered a few of us to a few of us made sure that we had the time, we accepted a request form to just distribute the little that we had left. And so people, we got 500 requests before we had to close it again, because we were overwhelmed once again. And it really sucks. I know that people need the aid and I wish we could do more, but it's really a limited amount of us. So we did what we could, and we continued to distribute to people affected by the freeze. So yeah, it's just crisis after crisis these days.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned you would like to keep it running and helping people, even without a crisis. So, in what kinds of situations do you think you'd be able to help people that isn't in a crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Off the top of your head.
I would say maybe because I live near downtown McAllen, I see a lot of people that don't have homes. It's about to start getting really hot. And so if we could maybe gather water or supplies or anything like that, it's not necessarily a crisis, but it's something that they literally experience all the time. Or just people that I know, other bigger cities have funds for jail bonds or things like that. Those are important, especially in communities of color where we're disproportionately put in jail. So that I feel things like that are important. And I hope that, again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I hope that with all of our minds together, since there are quite a few of us, that we could find ways to keep it going without always it having to be this big thing. Because yeah, mutual aid is always needed. Someone's always in need. And I want to make sure that there's a bigger sense of community. But it's hard. I don't know how to reach people all over the valley. That's why I want volunteers from all over the valley as well. That's why I want to be active. Because there's always someone that just needs community. Community is super important. I think that's why also we started it and decided to remain separate from a nonprofit, for example, because I think mutual aid, it just comes down to letting go of the individualistic tendencies that we have as Americans in a capitalist society. We tend to only focus on ourselves, but that's just not how we grow. So that's why I hope we can keep being active. Yeah, because community is the most important thing, I think.
And it's very clear that you care about your community and bringing change to it. But I understand that can maybe feel overwhelming, especially the Hurricane Hanna was in July or August of last year, and now it's almost been an entire year since then, and you're still working actively with RGV Mutual Aid. So how have you prioritized keeping yourself okay, emotionally or mentally, or has it been difficult to do so? While you're helping others?
Yeah, so like I said, I feel I had time because I wasn't in school. I can't imagine being in school, being in work, and then doing what the government should be doing, which is, helping people. So I that definitely helped, not being stressed out about school. Now that I start, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I hope I can still be active in some way or another. I don't think I overworked myself, because from the beginning we made it clear that as a volunteer you give the time that you can, and I have been giving what I give, and I know everyone else has too, and I love that, and I appreciate that so much. So, and then my crafts and all that stuff. So yeah, I think I've done an okay job of being balanced. I hope everyone else has. I would hate to have anyone burnt out. But I know like being socially aware, it's kind of hard not to want to do stuff like this. So I would say this that I've been doing what I can. I don't think I've overdone anything.
Okay. Okay, so as of right now, what do you foresee in the future of RGV Mutual Aid?
Yeah, I would love to maybe get volunteers from all over. I would, like I said, like I live in McAllen. I live in the Upper Valley, so I don't know what's going on in the Mid Valley or the Lower Valley. Like I'm not gonna speak on that. And some of us are here, some of us are there. Like I really want us to be spread out and highlight issues that are going on in that area. I think that's the best way to like help. And we've separated the Slack chat into regions. So if you're from the Upper Valley, get in this chat, and then if you're in the Lower Valley, get in this chat. And hopefully like conversations are had there, like of what is needed in that place. So I think the best, like ideally, if we could grow in that way and have people from all over the valley, that would be cool. But yeah, it's been hard, and I've also I think one of us reached out to Mutual Aid in Dallas and just like, how are you doing it? Like, how are you keeping members active? And because I would say that's like the hardest part, but they also don't. I mean, none of us really know. I guess we're just growing and going with it. So I hope we're growing in the right direction. I don't always have all the answers, and that's why I want everyone's input. I think like all our minds put together, we can maybe figure out how to be sustainable.
Okay, and lastly, about RGV Mutual Aid, what do you think has been the biggest challenge of operating and promoting a mutual aid organization during the COVID-19 pandemic? And on the same note, what has been the most fulfilling aspect of it all?
Mm-hmm. I would say the hardest part is truly hoping that we're making the right decisions and all that. I've tried to read up on other mutual aids. What is mutual aid? Truly grasping what that idea is, how it's just, I feel like in this country, I guess it's like a sort of radical idea to be able to help each other out with no profit incentive and no, I don't gain anything from it, but I know it's mutual. Like when I need help, I'll also be helped out. So I hope truly not straying from the meaning of mutual aid and making sure, I hope that we've been doing the right things. And as we grow, get more volunteers and everyone has their input, I think that's the most important part. So I would say that it's difficult a little bit, and keeping people active because everyone has their busy lives. And I think that's why it's so hard to keep them active. Is just, I really, we're all volunteers at the end of the day, so we can only give so much. But yeah, it's been rewarding to know that we gave our spare time in doing something that maybe helped at least one person. I really hope, it's been rewarding to be able to do that with no one giving us any type of budget or restrictions. It's just it's pretty liberating to be in a collective like that and having people trust us with doing that work. I would have people DMing the RGV Mutual Aid, here's my money, distribute it. And I think that's cool, that they trust us, even though we're literally just a couple of young people.
Okay, and now to close, I'll ask you some final questions relating to COVID-19. Okay, so first, are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in McAllen and Hidalgo County?
No. I feel like the government really has disappointed me. You're asking in a local level. To be fair, I really don't know how the extent of their power goes, but I know that the governor has just made, I feel the really bad decisions, really disappointing decisions really fatal decisions. And I wish that it had been handled better for sure. And it's still not being handled. Like Texas is open, so that's disappointing. So yeah, I would say I'm not satisfied with any of that.
Okay, and you just mentioned, because my next question was about Greg Abbott and your level of satisfaction with the state response. Would you like to elaborate on that anymore, or we can move on if you want?
Yeah, I feel like people that are in positions such as his, where he gets to get the vaccine right away and isolate in his little mansion and stuff, those type of people that are so disconnected from us should not be making the decisions for us. So I mean, I wasn't surprised. I think that's very on, like his decisions were very on brand with who he is, so I wasn't surprised.
Okay, and were you satisfied with the 2020 national response to COVID-19 led by former President Donald Trump?
No. Once again, I feel like it like yeah, it wouldn't have been as deadly if people were given the option to stay home, the resources to stay home, financial resources to stay home. It would not have been as bad if the government had helped us be safe, because like we can blame people for going out and whatnot, but at the end of the day, like if there was an incentive to be safe, maybe like it would have worked. But no, it was really just like you're on your own, wear a mask type. And yeah, and then those decisions again reflect all the deaths that took place here.
Okay, and are you satisfied with the current national response to COVID-19 led by President Joe Biden and his administration?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of promises were made that I guess we're still waiting to see the results. Stimulus checks feel like could have been better. I feel like giving, how many have there been, 2 or 3? That's not enough. It's literally been a year and we're supposed to, like, people were supposed to survive off of that. No, like people have been working and risking their lives. So no, I still don't see a change within these 2 presidencies. I think everything is remaining the same for me.
Okay. And if you had the power to respond to COVID-19 with policies, laws, or workplace decisions, what would you have done differently, if anything? Or what would you still do differently, if anything?
Yeah, so I guess like Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. So I guess like I mentioned, giving people the resources to stay safe. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's money, like not forcing people to work during a pandemic just to make their rent, paying for people's rent, giving people the resources to be safe. It was truly it, because at the end of the day, that's what the difference between like more like wealthy people being more COVID safe than low income people, because they have to work the most dangerous jobs. And so yeah, I think that's like financial aid. At the end of the day, it's the most important part. So I would say a lot of that.
Okay, and last question. Are there any other stories or experiences you would like to share with me that I have not asked about?
No, I would say, yeah, it was all covered. I think, yeah, working with all these people, like I said, that I've never even met before was pretty cool. And I think also, yeah, like this is hopefully the future of it, like being not fully relying on the government, relying on each other is something that I hope I can see more in the future, because we've been proven that like we'll be failed by these bigger systems in the end, as we have been. So yeah, hopefully people realize the importance of community and give what they can and take when they need it and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
I'm sorry about my dogs the whole time. Whoops. They just never
It's all good.
shut up. Okay, cool.
It's okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks. Bye.